Hello and welcome to this lecture about friction. So friction has we have two sorts of friction. One is friction related to statics, the other one is kinetics. Statics is stationary friction, and then kinetics is friction on motions. Like for instance, if I have this highlighter, I start to applying force to this. As long as this one doesn't move, I'm in static friction. I reach to a max, and then this one will start to move. So the maximum of kinetic friction is much less than maximum of static friction because you have the inertia in the beginning that you need to push it. So the factors that friction depends on, there are two factors. One factor is the roughness of the surface, roughness of the material, something called mu. Mu S stands for the statics. Again, we have mu K. Then the roughness of materials, again, if you check, for instance, for tire of a car, the roughness could be 0.1, 0.2. That the roughness actually is the one that keep you on the road. For example, for driving the car, if there is no static, the car will not move. But in some cases, the static is against what we do, and it's consuming lots of our energies. Then every statics comes with every friction comes with two things. The first one was mu, and then the second one is the normal force. And friction and normal force are perpendicular together. Like for instance, in this example, I'm leaning toward the wall. Again, what keeping me on the wall is the friction. So again, if I want to move down, the friction will be the opposite way, like this. That will be the friction. So the normal force to me is look like this to the person, and the friction is look like this. Normal force is always perpendicular to the surface, and then friction is always parallel, the opposite to the motion. So, for instance, if I have a block like this, I can say that again, block wants to move up. I have, like for instance, I'm pulling it up. The friction is the opposite way. It's the opposite of the motion, parallel to the surface, and normal force is always perpendicular to the surface, going to the object, by the way. Normal force is the reaction that comes to the object. So normal force is perpendicular to the surface, friction is parallel and opposite of the motion. So let's start with some examples, then we can go ahead from there. So the first example I want to solve is the examples of a crate that I have. The question asks me that if the force of P is 80 Newton is applied, determine if it remains in equilibrium or this thing will start to move. So